a bit of an overachiever. I did a diploma, a full-time diploma and a full-time degree at the same time. Go figure. And they were high intensity arts degrees. So I was working from 8 in the morning, sometimes finishing rehearsals at 11 at night, 6 days a week. And by the time I graduated, I actually managed to achieve burnout. So that was my first real claim to fame on the energy front, is that I had a very real experience of what it was to be in a chronic fatigue syndrome. And it was precipitated by glandular fever. And so there were a whole lot of mitigating factors, but it took me years to actually come back from it, to understand what normal tired was versus feeling chronically exhausted. Fast forward 15 years. When I'm married, I'm now an entrepreneur, I've started a coaching business, and I have my first child. And coinciding with the birth of my first child, my business takes off. And I'm finding myself as a young mother with an infant, breastfeeding and looking after an infant, and sometimes working 16, 17-hour days as an entrepreneur. And I'm sure there are entrepreneurs in the room, you know what I'm talking about. And again, there's at least a 5 or 6 period window where I'm consistently skirting burnout. And so I've had a very personal journey with this notion of what is energy, how do we manage it, and why is self-care so key to actually bringing your best potential into the world, actually bringing your highest value into the world. So as corporate people, as business people, we're always striving in very uncertain, unpredictable circumstances, and boy, have the last 2 years not shown us that, to succeed, to bring our best, to either climb that corporate ladder or make your business a success. And we know the pressure is on. This is a high performance game. And so we have found ourselves, I think, globally at the end of 2021, chronically tired. Now, when you just put that out there, okay, so I'm tired, the first thing that often jumps into our head is, all right, so I need to get more sleep. If I could just rest, or, oh, I'm waiting, I'm longing for that December 3-week break. I'm going to pin it all on December. In December, I'm going to magically have this holiday, somehow get through, the festive season and all the, funnily enough, stressful things associated often with it. And somehow I'm going to miraculously be fine for the beginning of the new year. And I don't know how many of you can actually say, like, when last did you go through a December break? If you take your leave then, not everybody does. But when last did you go through those 3 weeks and come back totally refreshed? I don't even know if I can remember if I've ever come back totally refreshed. So I would like you to just take a moment and put in the chat for me, those who feel moved, no obligation, but I'd love to hear from you. Number 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is feeling super depleted and 10 is feeling very energized, where are you? Where is your energy? And have you stopped and tuned in? Have you stopped and thought, wow, I just had 8 hours of sleep, but I'm tired. And how do I know I'm tired? So where are you on the 1 to 10 energy scale? Wow. So 6 is business engaged. Good. That's lovely. Colleen, that's a lovely sense of mastery. But we are sitting on 1s and 2s and 3s at the minute. I hear you. You are not alone and you're in the right webinar. This is a good thing, at least. But I hear you. Yeah. So just to take stock and almost quantify it is an interesting exercise, right? Because one of the problems here is we get used to feeling tired. We no longer can gauge, is this normal? Is this like a normal sense of tired? Is this just a year-end sense of tired? Is this something I should wake up to be alerted to? Is this just, I need a weekend and I'll be fine? What is going on? Because we need to really, as one of the most chronic modern conditions, and it's twofold because it goes with attention deficit. We are multitasking, we're chronically distracted, we suffer from attention deficit on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're chronically tired, and they go hand in hand. So we want to look at this notion of rest and self-care is not actually a soft thing of, because let's face it, South Africans, we're quite almost Calvinist in this, right? We come from a very strong, across cultures, strong work ethic. You must work hard, and you have to work hard in your business. You have to work hard for success. And this notion of caring for yourself is sort of soft often. It's sort of, people are quite dismissive of, oh, rest when you're dead kind of thing. But actually, self-care and maintaining a conscious monitoring of your energy and your well-being is actually linked to productivity and performance. It's a key player in productivity and performance. So if you want to succeed in business, if you want to thrive as a leader, as a parent, which is a primary leadership role, in your community, in your family, you need to really think about how are you looking after your energy reserves. And I think for me, heading for my 50s really is this experience of a humbling experience of how finite I am. I can't pull all-nighters anymore. I really get my energy is probably one of the most precious gifts, precious resources I have, because without it, time means nothing. You can give me an hour and say, hey, Juliette, go and do some deep design work on a new program you're developing. But if I don't have energy to actually be productive in that hour means nothing. So this is actually an energy game more than a time game. So often we do have the time to be effective. We don't have the energy to be effective. So having said this, and looking at how low your numbers are, we want to get a plan in place, which means we need to understand that restoring or refueling is not just a passive kind of rest. So often we think that rest is lying on a couch. It's being still. It's sleeping, right? It's have nothing to do, but it's not. And this is the game changer piece. Now I'm going to give you 7 layers of rest that I would like you to begin to consider, because you will come out with a very powerful, nuanced matrix of possibility of how to restore yourself. And in fact, we are currently developing a holiday guide for rest. How ridiculous that we need this, but let me tell you, we need this. And I'm developing it because I need it. I need to know how to wring every moment of rest out of my December break. This year, more than ever, I need to know that. And so I'm going to share my holiday plan with you of how to approach resting. Yeah, because if you can get to a solitary beach or fly to Mauritius or do something fabulous, that's wonderful. But when you're there, how are you going to not be wiped out by the festive season, not be wiped out by your family? I'm not kidding. Most of us are. So let's talk about it. Let's go to the layers of rest. So having defined rest and as a refueling, a restoring, not just a downtime, we're going to look at everything in 2 layers. And we're going to start with the most obvious form of rest. And I'm going to go very old school with you, and I'm going to put keywords up, right? So the first layer of rest is sensibly physical. Can you all see that? Physical rest. Yeah? Good. Okay, so physical rest is, let's look at these 2 layers, because of course the most obvious one is sleep, and it is crucial and enormously important for you to take charge of developing quality sleep, great sleep hygiene, understanding that sleep in our modern lifestyle is not something that's just to be taken for granted. It's actually precious. It needs to be taken care of. And whether it is understanding that you need to get off your devices and move away from screens an hour before you go to sleep, whether it's taking, and I'm not a medical person, so hear this from that perspective, but taking a magnesium supplement to help you sleep, whether it's understanding, and they're wonderful natural supplements you can take that are not sleeping tablets, because, so often we think we have to reach for something like that if we're suffering from insomnia, which I have in my life. And, this overactive mind syndrome, right? So to understand, how can you ready your body for sleep? Because your body needs darkness to begin to produce melatonin. Your body needs, so you need to start dimming lights. You need to move away from mental stimulation. You need good sleep hygiene. And there are so many ways and articles and things you can do. You can just pop that into Google and you'll get so many great ideas. But it is necessary to begin to think on, what is my preparing for sleep ritual. So step one, being aware that sleep is no longer just an accidental thing taken for granted. It just happens. If you're one of those people who just sleeps well, thank your lucky stars, because many of us are not. We have to take care of our sleep routines. Do not sleep with your phone next to your bed. Turn it off, whatever it is that you need to do. That's the first thing. We get that. We get sleep. We get the lying on the couch. We get the downtime, the still time, the vegging out time, the reading the book, watching the movie time. That's easy, right? That's obvious. But there are other layers. And another one is active physical rest. Exercise is one of the most beautiful ways of resetting and restoring your body. So going for a lovely walk at the end of the day to transition from work into rest and downtime, that full stop moment of going, now my body knows I'm no longer in performance mode and moving into rest mode is crucial. We used to have a commute, right? To do that, many of us are not commuting. So how do you transition from I'm at work to I'm now at home? Very important, those rituals. The rest, the active rest in physical rest is really important also, to know that it's not everyone's cup of tea to go for a vigorous run. It's really good for me. It resets me beautifully. A run is a super idea. I need that aerobic exercise to reset, or to even start my day in a restful, peaceful way if I feel strung out. The key point here is that through the day, your body is often pumped full of adrenaline and cortisol from that next meeting, that difficult conversation, that deadline, the stress of your day. And here's the thing. Our bodies in freeze, fight, or flight, where we get blasts of adrenaline, are actually primed for activity. They're primed to either freeze and hide from the lion, to run away from the lion, or to fight the lion. But now our lion is metaphorical. It's meeting, it's work, it's stress. It's not tangible in the same way. And our body, after millions of years of evolutions, doesn't know what to do with that adrenaline. The best way to clear your body of adrenaline, and by the way, I do believe this is even more important for men, that men really need to take note of this from their hormonal profile, is to move. Movement releases and clears your body of adrenaline. And that might just mean doing 20 star jumps or a power shake, shaking out your body when you finished your day, doing a lovely stretch. There's this beautiful stretch when you've been sitting at a computer all day, where you put your arms up into a Y shape and you pull them back, you put them into a W shape and you pull them back and you hold it there for about, 30 seconds to a minute. You put it into an L shape, you put it in an L shape, sorry, a T shape and an L shape, and you just open up again and release your shoulders from having been sitting at a desk. Because I've been sitting at a desk, I've been pumped full of adrenaline, and now I'm supposed to rest and feel better. Release and open up, actively shake out, move, 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 move. We were not meant to be so sedentary, right? And moving in nature is fantastic. It is usually the best way, but if it's the gym, do it. Think about either starting or ending your day with some form of movement. And again, it can be 5 minutes. Gone is the idea that I have to go for an hour run for it to count. You just do 5 minutes of stretching and shaking out, you're releasing adrenaline. Another thing is that our bodies in that state are sitting in our sympathetic nervous system, which is alertness, a state of, vigilance, of high performance, of activity, and often stress and even panic can sit alongside there. Now, we need to be mindful of bringing our bodies back, and in fact, please do this throughout the day, into a state of parasympathetic nervous system. So our nervous system must balance again. By the way, we were only supposed to actually hang out in sympathetic for like 90 seconds, bursts of, get away, fight, do something. We weren't supposed to hang out there all day. So to be mindful that we want to bring our bodies back into a parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest. It's where we're most generous, most creative. How do we do that? Breathing is such a beautiful tool for free, guys. And again, you can learn this easily. I have videos on my website, on my YouTube channel, but I can just share one with you right now, is that a simple act of focusing on your rib cage and your belly and breathing all the air out as hard as you can so that you're empty like this. And then gently, gently filling up through your nose, just allowing the air back in. And allowing it in. Already reactivates your diaphragm, but you've really got to empty and then allow the air in. Don't breathe the air in. Don't go like this. Okay. Allow the air in, allow your diaphragm to swing open. A simple exercise of breathing out over 4 or 5 and in over 3. So breathe out slightly more than you would, slightly longer than you breathe in, is a great way of releasing that residual air and deepening your breathing to activate your diaphragm, which activates your vagus nerve, which brings you back into a state of the world is okay. I can digest my food. I'm at peace. So resting your body means actively participating in where am I? How do I bring my body back into a parasympathetic nervous state? How do I release my nervous energy? How do I sort of reset the dial, as well as how do I sleep? Yeah? So physical rest is the most obvious. But now let's look. And any questions right now? Any comments? Do any of you find this particularly useful? Do you have a routine you'd love to share? What do you do to restore your physical well-being from a rest perspective? And by the way, I haven't even spoken about nutrition. It's not a topic for today, but of course that is key in quality refueling your body. Stay away from stimulants, excessive use of sugar and carbohydrates, which is sugar. Look at whole foods, looking at not jacking up your blood sugar all the time. Balancing your blood sugar is a key part of achieving physical rest. Yeah. Deshni says, very useful tip to go for a walk to transition from work to home. Yeah, beautiful one. Do it in the afternoon. It's a really good one. All right, so layer 2 is mental rest. Mental rest. So let's firstly look at what is important about our mind state. We want to be, and maybe this is the most important point I can make about it. We want to be able to focus. We want to be able to bring our quality attention to a task. We want to be able to achieve deep work. We don't want to get into cycles of multitasking, distraction, we've got endless notifications coming through, endless beeps and bongs, endless distractions that are, by the way, sending little blasts of cortisol into our system. We want to be so mindful of the fact that our mind and our ability to have focused attention is not limitless. It's not infinite. We can't do deep work all day. We can do superficial, multitasking, scattered work. You know that feeling that you've been busy all day and what have I actually achieved? It's a dreadful feeling. And that's what we start to notice happening when we're tired. We are struggling to concentrate. Media, having to consume huge amounts of visual information and multimedia, social media. The digital world is blasting our mind, is requiring our minds to work overtime. We're being asked to process information, an endless stream of data. So there are a couple of things, is to become very aware that this source of focus and attention is sacred. It is one of the biggest differentiators in high performance. If you give it away to social media and Facebook, if you give it away to news channels, if you give it away to negativity, particularly, you are squandering one of the most powerful sources of human productivity. I'm just going to let that land for a moment. How are you polluting your mental state? What are you starting your day with? Do you wake up, turn the news on? What are you allowing your mind to chew over? How are you occupying your mind share, your attention? Advertising is screaming and clamoring to get into your head. Big data is pushing customized advertising at you all the time. We go down these rabbit holes. We're distracted all the time. So mindfulness practice, meditation, and just being aware that your headspace, your thinking, your mind is a room What are you letting into the room? Because if there's so much clutter, you can no longer see, you lose perspective. And I think that multitasking and losing perspective is one of the biggest detriments to business and productivity, is people then stop focusing on what's important. They stop doing deep work. They stop. I'm always astonished by when I have to really put my head down and produce, how much I can do in how short a time if I focus. Laser-like focus. But I can't do that for 8 hours in my work day. And now I'm so mindful of when in the day can I do that. My mental focus is most clear in the morning. It's my best time, or later at night. So sort of 8 to 10. And I think that's from years of being on stage. I wake up in the evening. But it's so important for you to know when you have the best mental focus and to make use of it. So how do we have mental rest? Well, firstly, we set boundaries about what we consume. And we also look at things that take our mind off work to create space. So it could be watching a great story, a great movie, reading a book, occupying your mind with positive, inspiring, nourishing, stimulating mental stuff that isn't associated with deadlines and performance and stress. So studying something you love because you find it inspiring and joyful is a wonderful form of mental stimulation. So again, active and passive, how to quieten your mind with meditation and stillness, and how to activate your mind with stimulation, fill it up. Doing a crossword puzzle is actually a form of mental rest, because it works and builds good synapses and keeps your mind sharp and fluid, but it also takes you almost like a distraction or a repetitive task. Walking meditation takes your mind off stress and can feel quite refueling to sit quietly and do a crossword. I'm not that person, but there are people who feel that way, right? So how do you find mental rest? Have you even thought about that you've got to give your mind a rest? Yeah? So we often notice the stress of mental clutter, but we don't think about how it is just as important as a cluttered desk or a cluttered room. This leads us actually quite strongly into the notion of sensory rest, which has become one of the biggest modern day dilemmas. And it's very associated to consuming an enormous amount of visual digital media. But I think it's not just that. I think it's our rushed modern lifestyles and having access endlessly to music and noise, working in open plan offices when we did, just being in a car and constantly putting the radio on instead of just being quiet. So how do you don't have to go into one of those wonderful flotation tanks. Have you ever done that? Those sensory deprivation flotation tanks, they are profound. But have you looked at going, what happens when my ears are overstimulated? What happens when I'm asked to, process endless visual imagery and my eyes are tired? What happens when I'm constantly looking into a screen and into light and my eyes get tired? And I think the audio visual is very key for us. And I notice with myself, I get really scratchy and irritable. And at the end of my tether, if I am tired and there's constant noise or music, even music I love will start to annoy me. So to go out into nature and allow your senses, if you can lie on the lawn and allow your senses to just be filled with, a bit of bird song and the evening sounds and that far distant barking dog, or that Sunday morning where you hear that lawnmower in the distance, or the frogs singing in the river, or whatever it is, those beautiful, gentle sounds that actually help us tune out. How can you have sensory rest? One of the most amazing things of going into the Karoo is just going into silence. That beautiful silence of the desert, right? How can you give that to yourself? There's another layer that we often don't think about, is our bodies and tactilely our skins are subjected to information all the time. So yeah, we're wearing clothes, we're moving around, but the average woman will leave home in the morning having applied over 1,000 chemicals to her body in her makeup and cosmetics. That is sensory stimulation. Your body has to deal with that, has to do something with that, has to process that. So one of the things we talk about in terms of giving your body's sensory rest is stop making them process toxicity, because that comes in through our senses. What is toxic noise to you? What is toxic imagery to you? What is toxic chemical? What chemicals are you using in your home, from your washing powder to your cleaning things? Our obsession with germs and bleach. Your body's having to deal with that through your sensory system, as well as, and this is very important for children if you're a parent, as well as the products you put on. Are they filled with parabens and petrochemicals? So going very natural and looking at that mindfully actually is a form of self-care and rest. Yeah, because really what we're talking about here is detoxing from information coming in, whether it's chemical information, physical, sensory, whatever, mental, detoxing from information. Any comments or questions, put them in. I will always be, looking at the chat, so feel free to interact if you'd like to. Is this useful so far? Is this working for you guys? Yeah? Good, lovely. So sensory, being kind, respectful, honoring, paying attention to our senses. If you don't go into a sensory rest, what you also then will discover is your senses start to numb out. You stop seeing, you stop hearing, you stop feeling, you stop tasting, you stop smelling, right? We can abuse our senses and ask them to deal too much, and then we get desensitized. And that's something that you can see in children who are subjected to very noisy homes where the TV's always blaring and there's a lot of stimulation, is they can't hear anymore. And then they have an issue in class because they can't hear. But we are exactly the same. And I think the other thing is, how do I fill my senses up with beauty? What nourishes my senses? Is it a beautiful smell? I use, for example, essential oils because I love diffusing them and have those beautiful smells. They're very powerful. And I work with a very beautiful essential oil company because it's very, very pure. The average essential oil you buy has chemicals in, so it becomes actually a sensory toxicity. So you want very pure things, wearing pure fabrics as much as possible on your body, all sorts of layers to it. Allowing yourself to look on beauty and nature, feeding your soul and your visual cortex through beauty, a quality of light in a room, not being in harsh light. The kinds of things you listen to, are they beautiful on your ear? Do not underestimate how human beings, we have artist souls, all of us. We are responsive to art, to beauty, to beautiful stories. When we subject ourselves to ugly news and ugly stories, it actually has a sensory impact as well. So play with those ideas to think about sensory rest. Then this leads us quite nicely into emotional. And I actually am going to put emotional and social rest up too, because they are deeply interconnected. And I think emotional rest is an interesting one because it starts off with, oh, lovely, great tips, very useful. I'm so glad. Yeah, give me thumbs up. Tell me if you like something so I can pace myself around what's working for you. If you want me to be a bit more businessy, or I can be quite broad. This is for you guys, so you tell me what you want, yeah? But the emotional and social. So this is interesting, as a performance coach, teaching people how to speak, how to show up, how to collaborate, how to connect, how to tell stories. Emotional awareness is at the center of that because it means self-regulation. Now, self-regulation, in other words, the ability to regulate how you respond emotionally to your world, is a key performance capability. It's key to self-mastery, which means we need to be mindful of where we are emotionally. Emotional rest starts with tuning in and getting real. What do I actually feel? And again, as South Africans, this is not necessarily always a familiar language, but I would actually argue, having coached this material all over Africa, Europe, the Middle East, is that this is a worldwide thing. And that is we're quite judgmental of our emotions. These are good emotions, these are bad emotions. But the key to it is that negative emotions, so-called negative emotions like anger, jealousy, frustration, irritation, resentment, disappointment, those emotions will come out. Just because you don't like them and you don't want to acknowledge them doesn't mean they go away, right? They will come out. So what does that mean? They will come out in your behavior, your underlying behaviors. They will come out in your health, your inability to sleep, in an erosion of relationship, because they'll come out in your communication and underlying tone. It's very easy to see with children. They'll act out. It'll come straight into their behavior. And then often we jump on them instead of going to the source of the emotion. Negative emotions are just messengers. They're there to tell you that something in your world is not gelling, that your needs are not being met. Your need for advancement, growth, stimulation was not met. You feel disappointed. Feeling disappointed doesn't mean anything bad about you. It's just here to tell you. The most important thing about emotions is that because they're energy, they're information, they're messengers, please don't hang on to them. Read them, name them, honor them, listen to them, and then release them. It's like an inbox. If your inbox just gets emails in and you never do anything with those emails, you never open them and read them, you never answer them, process them, action them in some way, delete them in some way, what happens to your inbox? It eventually gets so full it can't function. And then we get things like depression, which is a suppression of all emotion, right? Not speaking as a medical clinical person on depression, but it is one of the things is that depressed people can't feel anything anymore. They can't feel joy. So we want to feel our emotions. And emotional rest means get real, get authentic, tune in, find spaces in your life and take stock of, is this an emotionally toxic place for me? Do I constantly feel this emotion here? Am I constantly in an emotional habit with a person, with a dynamic, with a team, with a project, with a relationship? And I think what's important about that is when you tune into your emotions, you can recognize that you are the master of them. So the moment we go into, I can't feel okay because that is happening or because that person is in the room, you've given your power away. Emotional rest begins with recognizing that you are the captain, you are the master of your emotions. Nobody can make you feel anything or not feel something. Gosh, we try so hard to make each other feel things, to inspire each other, to get buy-in from each other, to sell to each other. But we have to work very hard to influence people's feelings, to get them to play with us emotionally. Come and enjoy this and be inspired by this emotionally. We can't make them feel it. We'd be all gazillionaires if we could make each other feel stuff, right? Ever suffered from unrequited love? You can't make someone love you, right? So recognizing that the English language gets it all wrong. We say, you make me feel. No, I feel this when you do that. And you know what? I'm going to choose to release those feelings and move on. And so emotional rest has got a lot to do with allowing yourself to be where you are emotionally and read it and be authentic. But there's a second layer, and that is about recognizing when you're done with a feeling. Are you done feeling stressed? Are you done feeling disappointed? Are you done feeling powerless and low confidence? It's not strictly an emotion, but you get the emotions that sit around it. Are you done feeling negative about the world, feeling hopeless, right? And this is the point where I have to say that sometimes, counseling, therapy to help us move through very big, loud emotions like grief and loss, of which our world is abundantly processing at the moment. We are all experiencing a profound sense of grief and loss in the last 2 years. And it's not just losing people, it's losing our ideas about the world, our businesses, our personal freedom, our ability to socialize, you name it, right? And so what is it that you need to release the emotion? And when we talk about forgiveness, which is often quite a religious negatively associated word. I would like you to think about forgiveness, not about saying that was okay, what happened. No, it wasn't okay. It'll never be okay. But releasing your attachment to it. Releasing your attachment to it allows you to learn from it, realize how it strengthened you, the gifts you got from it, releasing the difficult things about it, and just letting it be part of the tapestry of being human in your life. You know, being hard on yourself creates an enormous amount of emotional stress. And I think being hard on other people creates an enormous amount of emotional stress. So who are the people you're judging? How are you holding on to resentment and emotion is enormously toxic. So emotional stress is about being authentic, taking off the mask, showing up honestly, taking responsibility for your own feelings, and then also, because that's the rest part, right? How do we restore our emotional well-being? Well, standing for positivity, thinking about and putting your energy into what you want your world to look like, what you want to create, and then emotionally imagining it is a powerful tool, right? The more we hang out in those higher frequency energies of love, appreciation, gratitude, they are abundant and they nourish our souls. So a little tip. We do this every night. My husband and two kids, my little girls, we sit around the dinner table every night. And the way we end our day and, get together and share our day is we start with gratitude practice. And we each share what are we most grateful from the day. And what it does is it brings an abundant mindset. It doesn't mean there isn't room for saying what was dreadful about the day, because there's room for that as well. But we always end with what are we grateful for? What did we most appreciate about our day? What do we appreciate about each other? And sometimes the only thing you're grateful for is that the day is done and that there's food in front of you and that you're here together. And that is good. Because gratitude practice and those higher vibrational positive frequency emotions wake up in us all the right hormones. It releases oxytocin, it balances our blood sugar, it reduces our cortisol, our parasympathetic nervous system wakes up. So practicing gratitude and appreciation. A lovely little tip there if you're feeling really stressed or miserable or resentful or upset is to put your hand on your heart and breathe. Imagine you breathing in and out of your heart and think about someone you love and appreciate, or somewhere that you love and appreciate, or something you love and appreciate, and just feel it. And it resets your body. And it is for free, guys, and you can achieve it in 3 minutes. Yeah? A very, very powerful one. I do that a lot when I'm feeling at the end of my tether. Often emotional is linked to a need for social rest. And that, by the way, is not social distancing, though it can be. So if you're very introverted, going away from people is really important, is being mindful of the social aspects. I'm just looking at the comments coming in. I'm glad you're liking the tips. Yay, thank you, everybody. Luana, I hope I'm giving the first names and not the second names. Nene, Florence, thank you, wonderful tips. Tandor, love it. I'm so glad you're finding them powerful. Hazel, awesome. That's wonderful news. These things help me. As I say, this is my personal journey I'm sharing with you, right? Social rest is about, so often we're on it. We're there to give and support and to help, particularly as leaders, as parents, as leaders in communities and in families. We give care to others. So our focus is always other people's needs, rising to other people's needs, meeting other people's needs. So you need to ask, who are the people in your life who engender social rest in you, where you can just hang out and be real, be low, be ugly, show up without makeup, with your flip-flops on. Who are the people that you can just have down? You get off the performance. You're not having to be client ready, team ready. You just can be in all your messiness, You don't mind that you don't have your game face on. That's social rest, is people who accept you for who you are, in the richness of who you are, who can hold that you have weaknesses and strengths. Wow, what a gift. If you have those relationships, nurture them. If you don't have them, invite them, imagine them, Seek them out. They are out there. I promise you, your tribe is out there. Sometimes they're your family, sometimes they're not, by the way. And that's a myth we need to chuck out, that our family should be where we have social rest. Many people find their family the most stressful people to hang around. And sometimes you got to say no. So social rest has got a lot to do, like emotional rest, with boundaries. Is understanding that your energy is not limitless and you have to focus and prioritize what you need to get done as a leader, as a team member. And if you are focused on pleasing and helping and serving everyone else all the time and you don't know how to say no, you are actually saying no, but you're saying no to yourself. So I want to talk about the simple tool, which is the energized yes versus the energized no. How do we say no? How do we set boundaries? How do we understand that boundaries make safe and ring fence our energy? Boundaries ring fence and protect and nurture our energy so that we can do our best work in the world, that we can show up as our best to our children and our families, that we don't collapse and have a dreadful December break because we're just wrecked, right? So that in December we can have social fun and joy and stimulation as well, right? A simple tool. Every time you say yes to something, you are by default saying no to something else. Get real. What are you saying by saying yes to this person? What are you saying no to? And are you okay with this? So, for example, by saying yes to your boss who didn't manage their time and wants you to work to 9 o'clock tonight, you're saying no to your children who haven't seen you all week and you had promised to read a story to. Are you okay with that? By saying yes to your mother-in-law who needs X, Y, and Z, you're saying no to your best friend, or you're saying no to your own health, right? What are the yeses and nos? Let's swap it. Let's flip it. By saying yes to I'm finishing at 6 o'clock this evening, that's my line. I'm saying yes to finishing at 6. Might mean I'm saying yes to my family well-being, yes to not feeling guilty, yes to feeling aligned with myself and congruent with my truth. What does that mean? Oh, it means I have to say no to that colleague, or I have to say no to my friend who's going through another crisis with her boyfriend, right? And how do you do that? You do it with love. You don't do it with resentment. You do it with love. You do it firmly, and you do not justify or explain. Right? No, sorry, I'm not available at 6 this evening. It's not possible for me. And if it's a work thing where you don't feel like you always have control with a senior person, get into a negotiated yes, no, and say, if I say yes to you, I want you to be aware, boss, that I'm saying no to these other things. And now you're in a deficit with me. Now you kind of owe me because I understand you need this. I understand the client's important, but I also want you to know that there is a sacrifice on my part and I'm giving you something. That's okay. It's not done in a tit for tat way, but it's just done in I do this gladly. It has meant this choice. I do it with a glad heart because I believe this is important. I would like us to try and be better with our time next time, or maybe give me more notice. I always love helping you, but I need more notice. Setting boundaries, negotiating boundaries sometimes means that conversation. But in your deep truth moments where the no is a no is a no, you have to get there and believe it. And what helps you get that is answering, what am I actually saying yes to if I say no to this? That's a huge one. Almost want to pause for a moment. The energized yes and the energized no. Setting boundaries is one of the most crucial ways. In fact, everything we've described really is about boundaries, isn't it? Is a crucial way of getting along with people and not getting emotionally drained by people. right? Remember, it's not just that 10 minutes conversation, it's the emotional drain that might happen in that conversation. Recognizing when people steal your energy and drain you emotionally. Recognizing when relationships are toxic. Recognizing when you take on other people's emotions and you try and make them happy. You know, it comes up in the parenting stuff all the time. It's not your job to make other people happy. You can't make them happy. It's your job to make yourself happy. Wow. If everyone took ownership for that, wouldn't it be lovely if your children felt it was their job to make themselves happy and they asked you for tips and advice and guidance? Yeah, you hear, but you're not the source of their happiness, right? Or your team or your boss. Think about that. Okay, so our two last layers of rest, I want to also speak at the same time together because they're very interconnected. And they are creative and spiritual. Creative and spiritual. I'm loving that, Sheila. You're making connections. Good, good. So I want you to know, as an artist and a performing artist, I believe that every human being is profoundly creative. Some people express that create in art. Other people, that creativity in art. Some other people express that creativity in problem solving or building a business or gardening or deciding what they're going to wear in the morning. Creativity is essentially problem solving, right? It's channeling ideas and possibilities to solve problems. It's being resourceful. So what does creative rest mean? Well, why is it important? Firstly, it's super important because if you do not rest and restore and nourish yourself creatively, or even acknowledge that you're a creative being, you cannot be innovative. You cannot find that next great thing. I think a lot of us are being asked to be super agile, to adapt, to embrace change. That takes creativity. Being able to adapt to change. Hello? Like, is that not one of the biggest themes currently? Being adaptable takes creativity, takes the ability to recognize and honor yourself as a problem solver. Here's the rub, and I have learned what creative burnout means the hard way, is that if you're expecting yourself to literally endlessly put out, endlessly give, endlessly produce, you're going to dry out. You're going to dry up like a river. That doesn't have a source feeding it, you know, a dam that gets depleted. So if you are starting to feel at the end of your ideas, you can't solve problems, you've lost perspective, you know that you're creatively tired. And there are so many ways of embracing this. And I think one of the most important ones is finding your joy again. And this is why it's aligned to spiritual rest. So let me jump into spiritual rest and I'm going to loop back. Spiritual rest for me, and this was a big one I learned this year again, is feeling fundamentally supported. It's believing that there's something greater than yourself. There is some rhyme or reason to this. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be formal, but it's finding in your heart of hearts a belief that somehow there is a reason why you're on planet Earth. You are supported. The universe does want you to succeed. It isn't just random, a mess and entropy. But that there, and how do we know this? Because no matter what you do with your paving, that little weed is going to, that little blade of grass is going to push through, right? The universe is primed for growth. The forces that hold atoms together are phenomenal. The movement and of atoms and energy, and that energy primarily is gathering and formalizing and creating all the time. So just finding trust that things are unfolding as they should is an interesting concept. And you can look at Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. You can look at The Power of Now. There's a lot of thought out there that's very interesting to tap into if you haven't, around what does spiritual nourishment mean to you? Does it mean your connection to God and Jesus? I feel my connection to God is linked to my connection to creativity. God for me is good orderly flow, is abundance, is love, is creativity, is flow. How are you connecting to those feelings in your life? How are you connecting to that? How are you connecting to the light, to energy, to believing in hope and optimism and possibility? And I think this brings one of the most important things that I'm going to share with you in our last 5 minutes. And that is, if you can align your purpose, why you feel you are on this planet, your work, in the relationships you have, in your work, in and out of earning a living, if you can align yourself to a greater sense of purpose, you will find it much easier to stay on track and much easier to nourish yourself. One of the keys to spiritual exhaustion and creative exhaustion is spending your life doing something you don't believe in, that doesn't feel purposeful to you, that isn't aligned to your truth. Now, that's not something to discuss in 5 minutes, but I put it out there because it's a whole conversation on its own, right? I put it out there, and I would love you to think about and ask yourself, how do I rest spiritually? Is it through prayer? Is it through gratitude practice? How do I restore a sense of well-being in my universe? How do I tap into love and abundance and flow? And am I aligned in my purpose creatively? In other words, the stuff I make and do and produce every day, is it aligned to a sense of purpose and a sense of truth? So, physical, mental, sensory, emotional, social, creative, and spiritual. These were derived, my springboard, my inspiration for these came from a doctor called Sandra Dalton Smith. You can go and look her up. She talks about the 7 layers of rest. I love how she approaches it, so I'd like to honor her in the work. And just to say, I hope this has been useful. If you're interested in looking at the guide and getting the questions, I have a download. Colleen, probably the easiest way to do it is to send you the link and everyone can get the download if they choose. You can disseminate it to everyone. And also the holiday guide to how to rest in the holiday and survive the festive season. So I hope this has been useful. Let me know in the comments what you've enjoyed most about it. And I just wish you all the acknowledgement of how you are the most magnificent source of energy, creativity, and beauty and truth in the world. I am the light. I am the love. I am the truth is a beautiful way of connecting with that on a daily basis. Take your shoes off, go and connect, stand on earth, connect with the earth, and know that this is all possible to achieve, not all at once, but little steps at a time. So think about it and honor yourself in it. I hope it's been useful. Thank you for your time. Over to you, Colleen.
Juliette, I've just put in the chat that it's been one of the most amazing sessions we've had for the year. So really appreciate you allowing us to end off on this high. I don't know, are there anybody that wants to just give us some comments on how it felt? No, I think they've put some comments in the chat. So, Juliette, thank you so much for making time to be with us. To everybody that has joined us this morning, it's our last event for the year. By next week, all the events for next year, for 2022, will be up on the Business Engage website. Go ahead, go and have a look, go make bookings. But Juliette, really, once again, I mean, it's just been a phenomenal close to the year. So thank you so much for making time. Everybody, travel safe if you're going away, and we'll see you next year, refreshed, and hopefully you'll implement some of the things that Juliette taught us today. But have a great day and chat soon.
Super. Thank you so much, Colleen. And may I just say that if anyone would like to follow us on Instagram, our handle is Dynamic Voice Company, because I think this is an ongoing conversation and it's a passionate one. And if you want reminders or little tips, we'll be posting through the next few weeks as well to just reinforce these messages.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.